Well, it's very clear. The Parades Commission's responsibilities are to deal with parades and protests that are related to parades. So the vast majority of the static protests that have been related to the flags issue just has not been part of our remit and has not come across our desk. We have had about 30 notifications of parades that are related to the flag protest. Where we've had those, we've taken decisions on those and communicated those as we would with any decision on a parade that the Commission takes. There's one event in East Belfast that the police are deeming to be a procession that is not notified to us, and our legal advice is very clear. Where it's not notified, the parade is unlawful and illegal and is a matter for the police to uphold the law through the public order legislation as well as common law, and that's an issue for them rather than an issue for us.
Do you feel that you are between a rock and a hard place? The Parades Commission is between a rock and a hard place when it comes to this, because you're forever being criticised about not doing anything about this.
Well, I think the Parades Commission has a very difficult job generally. There are 4,000 or so parades, but 97% of those parades attract no restriction by the Parades Commission. They go without sensitivity and without the Commission actually imposing any restriction on them. It's a very positive message that parading has improved significantly during the lifetime of the Commission in terms of the context and the sensitivities over the last 15 years. But you're right, I think because of the nature of the work that we do, which is dealing with the community relations issues and tensions that exist in this society, we do then attract criticism. Much of it, I have to say, I think is very unfair. In terms of the flags, our role is quite limited to look at parades, but where there is no notification, we simply cannot get involved because it is an unlawful parade and is a matter for the police then to manage the upholding of that law.
Now, part of your remit is to facilitate mediation. That does not seem to be going on, because here we are again coming up to the marching season. In fact, the marching season has started, and the whole issue of parades and policing has come around again.
Well, I certainly think the last few months puts a context that makes things difficult at the minute, but I also think there is plenty of time to move from the sort of contention and confrontation that we have at the minute to a place where dialogue and mediation happens. And I think there's a huge onus on any leader in this society to try not just to make clear that the law needs to be upheld, but to try to help persuade people into the sort of discussions that will be helpful to reduce tension. I don't accept that it's not happening. If you look at the minute, there are 9 or 10 places where the Commission in one way or another is involved in dialogue that's going on around a parade. And if you look back at last year in 2012, there were 2 very significant things, amongst many other things that were significant, bits of progress. One was, and I say this in a positive way to commend them, the Orange Order in September saying that there was no longer any inhibitor to local lodges having dialogue with residents associations. I think that was a very positive step forward, and that's where the Orange Order, I think, need to be going, and other parading organisations and residents, to have that dialogue, and it would be a major step forward in some areas where that dialogue does take place. Having created the expectation, it's now important to follow that through. And if you look in practice last year in an area like Crumlin, where there were people saying the parade on the 12th of July is going to be very negative things happen around it, the Commission issued a fair and balanced decision that was the basis for the Orange Order there and the residents to have dialogue, which led to agreement on the parade based on the Commission's determination. A very, very good outcome, a very positive outcome. So there are examples where it works. We're continuing to push it and to facilitate mediation where we can, but the real onus is on local leaders, politicians, clergy, business people, community organisations, parade organisers as well as residents in their local area to get together to have dialogue about parading, because that's where greater understanding will come. That's where there will be an improvement in relationships, and that's when we might get to a stage where contention disappears and parades happen without that sort of sensitivity or conflict.
Yes, but having said all of that, there are some who fear that it is inevitable that we will have a long, hot summer, and they don't mean the weather.
Well, I think we deserve a long, hot summer in terms of the weather, but I certainly don't believe it's inevitable that we're going to have a long, hot summer in terms of contention around parades or difficulties or violence or anything else that's associated with it. That's not inevitable. We have plenty of time to start the sort of dialogue that's needed, to develop relationships even further, and to try to find agreement in those areas where there is contention still. The onus, though, is on parade organisers, on residents, on politicians and other civic leaders to take the lead in their local areas to uphold uphold and support the upholding of the law by the Commission and by the police, and then to encourage others to get into dialogue to try to resolve issues where they exist. You know, the best outcome for us in any area is where the Commission does not have to get involved. Best outcome is where we don't have to take a decision. But in order to get there, people need to have dialogue and reach an understanding. There's evidence of it in the past. We can do it in 2013. The capacity and the leadership is certainly there if people apply themselves to it.